That's the only kind of diversity I really believe in 100%, at least in,
But you
in
did say
terms of
once,
culture. Yes.
did you believe, you're not a white supremacist, you believe objectively Asian culture is superior? You said that once, something along those lines.
Well, not Asian culture. If you look strictly at statistics, if you compare East Asians, whether they're living in East Asia or in the United States, in terms of crime rates, in terms of average IQ, in terms of likelihood to produce illegitimate children, in terms of average income, they are in those senses objectively superior to whites. Now, does that mean that I want to turn the country over to Asians? No.
Right.
Does that mean I want to become Asian? No. I like white people. We have other different strengths. I think in many respects, Asians have a kind of suppressed individuality, or maybe just a diminished individuality. They're not creative in the same way we are. We're the people who sailed all around the world, discovered things, invented things. We're the guys who went to the moon. I think there's a kind of a Faustian, wonderful characteristic that white people have. I think white women are noble and queenly in a way that Asian women just can't even aspire to. But in those statistics that I just cited to you earlier, I think one could say that Asians are objectively superior to whites. Does that make me a yellow supremacist? Nobody ever calls me that. But simply a preference for one's own kind, if one is white, gets you labeled as a white supremacist, which is just a stupid term.
Whites are supreme in your heart.
Does that make me a supremacist? Well, Jews are supreme in the hearts of Israelis. Does that make them supremacists? Japanese are supreme in the hearts of Japanese. It's only when white people express the most obvious and normal sense of solidarity with their own people that they are criticized for it. The other thing about white supremacist, to me, that is a completely inappropriate term, because what it has meant historically is the expectation that whites should rule over people of other races. It's a historical term. And yes,
it's a two-pronged definition. You have to think they're superior, and as a result, they should rule over others. I've never met anybody where both prongs are satisfied.
That's right.
Since you mentioned Jews, that's the only criticism I've ever heard you get from movement types. Otherwise, across the board, you're universally, I think they would elect you emperor. But the question, it was Phil Donahue who asked you, are Jews white? Mm-hmm. And you said they look white to me.
Yes.
Care to elaborate? So that's, I guess, the question, are they white or are they different? Because they have Levantine DNA, yes?
Yes. That is a tricky question. European Jews, many Ashkenazi Jews, would say, Lauren Bacall, does she look anything other than white to you? Would you say, gosh, there goes a Jew? Sometimes Levantine Jews are clearly Jewish. Now, the role of Jews in Gentile societies is a very controversial one. And I would be the first to say that in the aggregate, the influence of Jews has been very negative in terms of undermining any kind of intellectual rationale for white consciousness, white solidarity. Jews have been very active in promoting immigration from all around the world. And in all those respects, Jews have played a particular role that certainly deserves criticism. Does that mean that all Jews are our enemies, or are all Jews non-white? No, I don't think so. Jews, some of them have been, I think, real loyal men of the West. Some of them have been scientists on the subject of race. I can speak in one case in particular, Amy Wax. She's a Jewish professor at Penn Law School. Of all the academics in the entire United States, she is the only one who has ever invited me to speak to her class. Not only has she invited me to speak to her class, she did this in the teeth of a concerted, formal effort to strip her of tenure, fire her from the university, and impound her retirement. And she had asked me to speak to her class several times, and then this official thing got going. And the fact that she had invited me was one of the great black marks against her. This wicked, I don't know if they called her a white supremacist, but she was a racist. She said,
or enabler of white supremacy.
Well,
sure.
Yes. I thought, okay, well, this year she's probably not going to invite me back. By hokey, she did. And I think that takes incredible bravery. And not only that, this last time when I was in her class, there was a group of must have been 60, 70, 80 screamers who gathered outside the class. And it's a small seminar class. And as the students were filing out, every one of them got booed and jeered and catcalled. I think that was just disgusting. Booing at students because they went to a particular class. I mean, that is just degenerate. Now, of course, when Amy Wax and I left the room, they were all screaming. And I'll tell you what they were screaming. Let's see. They said, 1, 2, 3, 4. Amy Wax, there's the door. 5, 6, 7, 8. Penn law propagates hate. What boneheaded nonsense. They're yelling this at the top of their voices. Do you know what Professor Wax did? Most people would have just scurried off. She went up to the 7 or 8. They're all kind of arranged in a semicircle around the exit of the seminar room. She went up and she took pictures of all of them. I wouldn't have even done that. I might be afraid somebody would take a Yes. Sure. I would have been worried somebody take a poke at me. But she, not that I wouldn't be unhappy poking back, but those were people that she has to live with. Those are people at Penn Law School. Now, okay, is someone like this, am I supposed to say Professor Wax is an enemy of the white race? Is Professor Wax part of a group that's trying to undermine Western civilization? This just doesn't make sense to me. So, again, most Jews, certainly intellectual Jews, in their efforts to diversify American society, undercut the moral underpinnings of any kind of racial consciousness. They have had a very damaging effect. But you can point to a lot of Episcopalians or other Protestants, Catholics. So look at the Catholic Church these days. They've swallowed all this rubbish. And it's not as though Jews are required to have these insane, egalitarian, ultimately suicidal movements like the abolition movement in the United States, the Grimke sisters, for heaven's sake, utterly crazy white people. The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution. Well, there are a lot of Jews involved in the Russian Revolution, but white people go in for this stuff too. So that's been a rather long, rambling answer to your question about Jews. But clearly, there are Mizrahi Jews, Sephardic Jews who are not white. Their Jewish admixture just goes beyond any kind of what I would consider to be white people. So,
and they wouldn't pass the eye test. You wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't. Okay, so you would say the Mizrahi and the Sephardim are not white, but Ashkenazim are. Some would say that the Ashkenazim are the most politically subversive, though.
They are very smart, and they beaver away at whatever they want to get at. Now, the whole question of the status of Jews in American society, I suspect these are extremely troubling and confusing times for American Jews. I think they had absolutely no idea that when they unleashed this kind of diversity, equity, inclusion, all of this stuff, the idea that white people are oppressors, that white people are colonialists, et cetera, I suspect they never realized that they would be lumped in the very same bag of with the people that they were demonizing. And when you have people now in solidarity with the Palestinians and accusing Jews of being settler colonialists and wicked, I think it is idiotic to call those campus activists anti-Semitic. I don't think they're anti-Semitic in any kind of traditional term. They're not secret admirers of Hitler. They've never read the protocols. I don't think they know anything about the Rothschilds. They've never read the Torah. They're not by any stretch of the imagination anti-Semitic in any ordinary sense of the word. They are anti-white. and they see Israeli Jews as settler colonialists, which is the worst sort of thing that any white person can do, or any non-obviously third world person, whether you call them white or black. It is this anti-white vitriol that has suddenly poured down on the head of Jews who, I suspect, many of them thought that all they had to do was evoke Holocaust and they would be considered victims and not oppressors. This current period must be an extremely confusing time for American Jews. And some of them are going to have to make up their minds. Well, are we really going to be the pets of DEI, or are we going to realize that, like it or not, our side is with Gentile white people? This is a very, very tough time for them.
What about the white identitarians who would not accept Jews under any circumstances? Do you think the Ashkenazim are going to come back knocking on the door asking for readmittance? Or because they tried to assimilate originally when they first came here, but then were instrumental in fomenting all this anti-white hatred. So you think they just played the Holocaust card? People, non-whites, identify them as white anyway.
Oh, I think if you ask blacks or Hispanics, if to the extent that they think of them as Jews, they probably think of them as uber whites with an unusual amount of power and influence. No, they don't think, oh gosh, poor Holocaust survivors, or oh my gosh, these people went through the pogroms, or these people were hunted down by saber-wielding Cossacks. They don't think that way at all. And if the current crop of liberal Jews think that they're going to solve the problem by instituting Holocaust studies in kindergarten, they are completely wrong. That's just not going to work. And when all of this anti-Israel stuff started happening on the campuses, I read an article written by a Jewish scholar. He said he called up the DEI offices in, 7 or 8 universities. And he said, well, what are you doing to help Jews? And all of them, their reaction was, huh? Are we supposed to be helping Jews? And his argument was DEI must protect our victim group. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And for them to think in those terms just shows how utterly deluded they were. So, but the question is, will racially conscious white people accept Jewish allies? I think that some will, some won't. There is a fellow that I've known for years. His name is Robert Weisberg. He gave a talk at one of my conferences. It was called Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Jews. He's a very funny and he's a very smart guy. And he said, I
used to edit his articles for Tacky.
Yes. Professor Weisberg, he says, look, Jews they can be schizophrenic on a lot of things, but one of the things they recognize is that they don't want to live around black people. They understand that black people are trouble, and they are looking for solutions to society's problems in ways that are not that dissimilar to yours, speaking to the American Renaissance audience. On the other hand, are they really going to want to join a group of people who want to kill them? Well, probably not. So how we are going to work out any kind of acceptance of help and solidarity from Jews who really see things our way, despite all of the things they've done in the past that have aroused these intense suspicions on the part of many racially aware white people, I don't know. But ultimately, I believe that white racial consciousness needs all the help it can get, and that there are some Jews who can be absolute stalwart comrades. I know that puts me in something of a minority position. There are many people who say that, well, no, Jews are the number one problem. And unless Taylor is constantly naming the Jew, he is setting us up for some kind of undermining and defeat. Well, I've had to deal with that for ever since 1990, 34 years. I guess I'll have to keep on dealing with it.